let's talk about one of the most famous and important experiments on social psychology and the power of groupthink. And we come to this term that we use today is called conformity. Conformity is the modification of behavior to make it agree with that of the group. So you'll see this when somebody moves to a different country, or even on a much smaller level, somebody moves from one school to another, they'll start conforming to the norms or the normal expectations of social behavior for that group. Solomon Asch wanted to see how powerful conformity was. He was a Jewish psychologist. He's trying to understand the work of Hitler and the Nazis. How could so many people be conforming and compliant and complacent as well with hurting and killing innocent people in the Holocaust? So he wanted to see how groupthink works. So Solomon Asch performed studies on the nature of conformity. He showed that most people will go along with the group and agree with the wrong answer, even though it's against their judgment and their better judgment. So his experiment, as we looked at, used lines. And these lines were, without a question, parallel. So he would have one line on one side and then three lines on the other, and two of them absolutely were the wrong answer. And he was just asking which line matched. It'd be A, B, or C. And what he found out is if he put a bunch of actors or Confederates and one person was actually just a regular person in with the group, and the Confederates or the actors are all saying B, even though it's the wrong answer. It's clearly the wrong answers. It would be like defining, completely going against the reality that they would go along with the group. In fact, 70%, 7 out of 10 people would just go along with a group of random strangers they did not know. It wasn't like their friends or their family and they're putting pressure on them. It was just random people. But by saying their answers out loud, they would conform. Then the second part was he added one other person in there. He had a Confederate that would agree, give the right answer. And what happened is the strength of the group started falling apart. So now that one person would say the right answer before it got to the regular person they were actually doing the experiment on, that person would be like, okay, it is C. C is the right answer. And they would give the right answer. They found out that the group started falling apart when there was more people to go against it, even though it was still a minority. And finally, what really changed the results is when they wrote down their answer instead of saying it out loud. And the belief is that people would be scared of social pressure of saying the wrong answer or in front of other people. If they wrote it down, the vast majority of people would write the right answer. But still, people would write the wrong answer. That just shows how powerful social conformity and groupthink is. If random strangers can get us to say the wrong answer when we're looking at something that completely goes against our eyes, and we're like, no, those lines are definitely parallel. Imagine what they could do in situations where you have like friends or family and our culture or a nation. Think of how powerful those influences can be on the choices, decisions we make for right or wrong and the way we act. Do we give away our power to the group? Do we conform? Do we displace our responsibility to other people? Oh, they must know. Therefore, we just go along with other people, even though it might be the wrong thing. Then on the other side of it is the psychology of why are there certain people that actually stand up against groups and they will go against it. Like, how hard is it to go against Nazi Germany during the Holocaust? But there were people that went against the Nazis and went into concentration camps, had serious consequences, or were murdered. How do people go against it? Now we're going to talk about compliance. How do we get people to do what we want? How do you get them to comply? Well, the first theory is that you do what's called a foot in the door phenomenon. And if you suggest that if you can get people to agree to a small request, then they will become more likely to agree to a follow-up request that is larger. So, hey, honey, could you, and you probably see your mom or your dad do this to each other, and you've probably even done it to a teacher or a coach or something. Like, hey, Mr. Metropolis, is there a way maybe we could, I don't know, we could postpone the quiz one day, I don't think anybody's ready. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I guess we could do that. Actually, then the next thing is you try to follow up with, actually, maybe we could just get rid of the quiz and go to a test. Okay, well, this makes it more likely Once you got me to agree to postponing the quiz to actually being like, maybe we don't have time for a quiz at all before the final. That's foot in the door phenomenon. Now, door in the face phenomenon is that a person should make an unrealistically large request and then followed by a smaller request. Hey, Mr. Petropoulos, can you get rid of the final this semester? And of course, Mr. Petropoulos is probably going to be like, well, no, finals are required by Ferguson Floors and by our school district, so I can't do that. Okay, well, is there any way that maybe we could just skip this quiz and go to the final? Because this is a lot of testing. That makes it much more likely. Okay, or if you see like your mom or dad ask your mom asks her husband, hey, can you is there any way that you could pick up the kids from and take them to school for the next 2 weeks? That would really give me well, I don't know. That's quite a lot. Okay, how about you just pick them up on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'll do Mondays and Wednesdays. Okay, yeah, I could do that. See, it makes it easier, is the idea, and these phenomena tend to work. They used to be very effective. Now, the norms of reciprocity phenomenon is that people have a tendency to feel obligated to reciprocate kind behavior. You ever heard "kill them with kindness"? There is a lot of truth in that. So if you're nice to someone, you say good morning, people tend to be nice and say good morning. If less people are saying nice and good, are being nice and saying good morning, then there's probably less good morning and niceness going on. So we know that if we are kind to each other, that we really do tend to be kind back to people. Also, if you give something to somebody, they feel obligated to you. This is a psychological phenomenon called the norms of reciprocity phenomenon, where if you give something to them, they feel obligated or they need to give back to you. Very important concepts, and they tend to work. And it could just be kind gestures that could really build your relationships with other people, and you could use these for positive means. All right, let's do this one together. On Monday, Tanya asked her teacher to postpone Tuesday's test until Friday. After her teacher flatly refused, Tanya asked the teacher to push the test back one day to Wednesday. Tanya is using the compliance strategy known as A, foot in the door, B, norm of reciprocity, C, compromise, D, strategic bargaining, or E, door in the face. And this is door in the face. Go big, and then you can go to a smaller task. Now, the last guy we've talked about previously is Stanley Milgram. Stanley Milgram has very important experiments, and as well as he was a Jewish psychologist as well. And he did a series of famous experiments on obedience. So we talked about conforming, and groupthink. He is going at Yale University. He's trying to see how far people would go in terms of shocking someone and hurting another person if the authority figure directed them to, and to witness. And they witnessed the person in pain. So on one side of the window, there's an actor saying, "I got a heart condition, don't shock me." And then on the other side, you just have the psychologist or the person that's giving directions to the real person to turn up the knob and just give them electrical shocks. And the guy's like, "It's hurting me." And he was shocked, no pun intended, that how far these guys would go. Well, they would literally turn this knob all the way. The majority would, and that was really scary to him because the authority figure, which really was just the psychologist saying, turn up the knob, really they didn't even have any true power. It wasn't like a Nazi's telling you have to do this or you're gonna go to jail or your family's gonna get murdered. The guy was just telling them to turn the knob up. And what Milgram showed is the power of obedience, and that we will listen to we will conform as well as we will listen to authority figures, the vast majority of people, and it's hard to go against that power structure. And again, the question is, well, why are some people able to do that? Why are people like a Martin Luther King or Mohandas Gandhi or Susan B. Anthony or Sojourner Truth or Maya Angelou, like all these famous people in history that would actually stand up and go against these power structures and not be obedient? And it's interesting to kind of investigate the psychology on that side as well. But we understand that Milgram really shows the power of obedience, and it's actually an example of a experiment that we're not supposed to do today. And there's some questions about the way it was implemented and if we should allow people to think that they're giving other people pain. And most psychologists would say, no, this is not an ethical experiment today. However, it is very famous because it showed quite a bit and kind of scary evidence that how far people will go to listen to an obedient or maybe an authoritarian ruler.